So if a fighter hasn't, people ask, well, why does Anthony Joshua or Vladimir Klitschko or fighters in the past, Antonio Tarver or Roy Jones, why did they fight 10, 15, 20 times for the IBO title? And the answer to that question is very simply, we're living through one of the reasons with why that happens today. You have a fight that everybody wants to see: Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it happening? Why isn't it solid? Why wasn't it made? Why isn't it sanctioned yet? The reason is there's a mandatory in the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mandatory. There's a mandatory in the way. I think it's USIC is the mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
WBO title.
Yeah.
So the problem with a lot of marquee fighters is they want to keep their independence. They want to fight the best. They want to make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
At the top of this game, fighters have a very short career, and they have a short window of time to make enough money, because after they leave boxing, that's when the questions begin. So for the real premier champions that have chosen to keep the IBO title throughout their career, it's so that they are sure that we will not impose a mandatory against great fighters.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that kind of brings me to, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that brings me to my next question. So you mentioned the 4 major sanctioning bodies, and then then there's you guys. How does that happen? So you guys you just start talking about all the great champions from, I think Manny Pacquiao's had about Roy Jones. All these guys have held IBO belts, and I'm trying to understand, how does that happen where the IBO, right, has more recognition, like in Europe and different places, but it's not considered the major belt like by Ring Magazine and things like that. How does that function as far as recognition goes? Because it would make sense to me, and also, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, if I read this somewhere where there's generally one belt per weight class. Like you have the WBC with the franchise and all this other things like that. So just how, with your business model you were talking about as far as how the IBO works, how does that happen to where now on the state side, okay, we have 4 majors and then the IBO, but then, you have major fighters throughout the history of boxing from when you guys started, I think it was in '88, who've held this belt. And over in Europe, it's recognized by the European Boxing Council and things like that as a major belt. How does that split happen when you guys have a good track record of great champions fighting for the IBO belt?
Well, it's an appropriate question, and this is something you have to understand. Boxing is a business about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So every major promoter has a relationship with 1 or maybe 2 key major sanctioning bodies. It's no secret. I mean, most of the business from, let's say, Top Rank goes to, not only, but it goes, the key sanctioning body is the WBO.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that way with other key promoters. So it's about relationships. How do we survive in this thing? I became president 20 years ago, so that's, as far as I'm concerned, when I had some control over this. I knew, by being in boxing before, I've been in boxing for 15 years. I was a boxing judge. I judged some major fights over the years. I knew that the journalists, such as yourself and the boxing people, said, well, we'd love to work with you, but there's too many sanctioning bodies. We already have 4 sanctioning bodies and 4 champions. We don't want a 5th sanctioning body. So the water is already muddied. So I couldn't really argue with them, because I grew up enjoying boxing. I said, yeah, you guys, you're not right. You're not wrong. You are right. There are too many sanctioning bodies. So I understand, but we have a different business model. We only do mandatories when the champion isn't fighting the quality opposition. Our rankings are computerized.
Okay.
I can't move fighters around. We have a program, and that's what the computer said. It's a very sophisticated program. So over the years, it's been a very tough battle to try to get champions to fight for the IBO because of the relationships. Now, over the years, as you've seen, the number of champions per major sanctioning body, now there's not 4 world champions per division, there's 15 or 16 per division.
Right.
When you go back to these guys, you say, hey, good argument you had now, back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, guys. But your argument now is really hypocritical and not correct anymore. Because we only have 1 world champion. So if you had allowed us the same kind of recognition as the other 4, you'd have 5. I can see where you didn't want to do that. But now you got 15 without us.
Right, exactly. Right.
You don't have an argument that's based upon fact. Now, you said you didn't want to confuse the fans. Confuse the fans. My goodness, I'm in the business and I can't keep track. And people ask me, what does it mean when you have this belt? What does it mean when you have that belt from another sanctioning body? And I try to explain to them, or they'd ask me, do you have an interim belt? I said, yeah, the term interim was originally started when a fighter got injured, couldn't compete. And in a logical sense, he had medical attention for a major injury, and he's not going to fight for a year and a half. So you made an interim champion, with the understanding that when the champion gets well, the interim champion has to fight him. It was logical, made sense. Instead of keeping the title on ice for a year and a half, that was what an interim is. I don't know what interim means anymore. I really don't. Other than the fact that a broadcaster can put it on as a world championship, and the fans, get confused more. And I kid around with some of the fans. Say, well, don't worry, the IBO's, we're going to start an intergalactic title next. Cover the universe. So we'll only have a world title and an intergalactic title. So this is a difficult way to progress and operate. But luckily, the 2 things that we have is, if you get ranked a certain level, and if you're not with one of these major promoters, there's an avenue for you. And when you take that road, 1 or 2 things are going to be happen to you. If you become a great champion, if you're a really great fighter, you already had a climb through the IBO with we didn't put you in because of a relationship. You earned it by who you fought. You fought good people. The computer moved you up. You took the tiers. If you get to that level, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. You're going to keep the IBO title and fight for other titles because they're going to want you. They're going to want you. At that point, you have a choice. You keep the IBO title. It gives you a way to negotiate the next fight. If a particular sanctioning body puts you in a position that you don't want to be in, well, the IBO title is there for you. We're not going to take it away from you. Or the other thing is, you become a superstar. Then you don't care. Listen, the evolution, as I see it now, is a super champion doesn't need a title. Champions make titles. Titles don't make champions. Particularly in this business model now. You have probably 125 world champions. I can't name them. I don't know anybody who can. So it gives fighters an option. You stay with the IBO, and if you become a superstar, some of the superstars, Gennady Golovkin's an example. He's fought for our title 21 times. If people particularly, people want to see him fight, and they don't care really which belts he has. They just want to see him fight. They want to see him fight. They'd love to see him fight Canelo. Canelo's another example. He doesn't really need titles. Canelo wants to fight somebody, and it's a good fight. I want to see.
You can fight anybody.
I mean, I'm gonna watch his fight when he fights Yildirim. Do I want? I just want to see Canelo, and I don't. You know, the fact that that's a mandatory for the WBC, that doesn't mean anything to me. So this is the difficulty we have, but we've done well over the years because, and also the other thing is, there's an unbelievable amount of talent out there. When I first took over the IBO, I went to South Africa because I knew some promoters in South Africa. Had previously been there for judging and whatever. You got 30,000 registered fighters want a chance, want to be on the world stage, they just need the opportunity. They couldn't get the opportunity with some of the others. They're just not going to happen. They're not going to,